In every whisper of existence, there is a hidden rhythm, a subtle pulse that holds the secret of creation itself. The ancients called it gender, not the narrow definition tied to physical form, but a universal principle, vast and eternal, woven through the very fabric of reality. Gender exists on all planes, the Hermetic texts remind us. This means that what we see in human form is but the smallest echo of a cosmic truth. For in the stars, in the atoms, in the quiet workings of the mind, this principle repeats itself like a sacred mantra. Yet for centuries, it has been misunderstood. Many reduce it to mere biology, a physical distinction of bodies. But Hermetic philosophy does not speak of human categories alone. It speaks of the masculine and feminine as archetypal forces, energies that extend far beyond flesh and bone. To read the principle of gender literally is to mistake the finger for the moon, the shadow for the light it points toward. When the Hermetic masters spoke of gender, they spoke of polarity's deepest marriage. The masculine is the seed, the spark, the thrust that initiates movement. The feminine is the womb, the vessel, the space in which form is nurtured into being. Without seed, there is nothing to be born. Without womb, the seed cannot grow. Together, they form the breath of creation itself. This mystery is not confined to myth or metaphor. Look to the natural world. Every tree, every river, every gust of wind carries within it these twin impulses. The river flows with a masculine current, pressing forward, yet it is received and guided by the feminine curves of the earth. The seed of a tree is carried by wind or creature, but only within the dark silence of soil does it awaken into life. Creation requires two movements, forever dancing, forever embracing. Even the cosmos is bound to this rhythm. The stars are born from explosions, forceful, finds, airy, masculine bursts of energy. Yet they find their home within the vast embracing womb of space, which receives, contains, and allows their light to travel across eternity. Without the container, the fire would dissipate. Without the fire, the container would remain barren. Modern science, too, whispers the same truth. In quantum physics, we find dualities everywhere. Wave and particle, expansion and contraction, energy and matter. Just as the Hermetic sages spoke of masculine and feminine, the physicists describe complementary forces that cannot be separated. Light itself is a paradox, existing in two forms at once, awaiting the receptive gaze of the observer to collapse into reality. The forgotten key of creation is this: the masculine and feminine are not opposites to be divided, but partners in a ceaseless dance. When they unite, worlds are born. When they fall out of harmony, creation falters. Within our own minds, we see this mirrored. Reason, structure, and logic hold the masculine current. Imagination, intuition, and feeling carry the feminine flow. One builds frameworks, the other breathes life into them. Thought alone remains sterile. Emotion alone dissolves into chaos. Together, they form the alchemy of manifestation. To think clearly and to feel deeply, this is how reality takes shape within us. The ancients did not teach this principle as a dogma, but as a living key. They urged us to see the union everywhere, within ourselves and in the world, so that we might move in harmony with the pulse of the cosmos. For when you align with the marriage of forces, your own life begins to blossom in rhythm with the greater whole. Feel the breath within you. Inhale, the masculine force, the entering spark. Exhale, the feminine release, the letting go. Even in the simple act of breathing, you live this eternal truth. This is why the Hermetic principle of gender has been called the hidden engine of all manifestation. It is the secret marriage that lies beneath form, the quiet union that births every star, every thought, every heartbeat. It is not bound to male or female bodies, nor confined by earthly categories. It is a cosmic archetype, a universal law, the great polarity that makes creation possible. To forget this is to live in division. To remember it is to rediscover harmony with the infinite. And when we begin to see gender not as a label, but as a law, we awaken to the profound reality that we are all participants in this endless dance of forces. For the principle does not merely describe the universe, it invites us into its rhythm. It whispers, "Become the seed and the soil, the spark and the womb, the mind that conceives and the heart that nurtures. For within you lives both currents, waiting to be joined, waiting to create." And as this key is remembered, the path ahead opens into deeper mysteries, where the echoes of this union resound in myth, philosophy, and the silent workings of the cosmos itself. Across the sands of time, humanity has always sought to name the hidden forces that move the world. Long before modern science gave us theories of energy and matter, the sages and mystics of antiquity spoke in symbols, myths, and sacred stories. Within these stories, the principle of gender was not only preserved, but celebrated as the silent truth behind creation itself. The Kybalion, the Hermetic text that distills ancient Egyptian and Greek wisdom, tells us, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. This was not meant as a casual observation, but as a revelation. The Hermetic masters were pointing to a universal pattern, one so foundational that nothing, from galaxies to grains of sand, could exist without it. In the mythos of Egypt, this truth found expression through the divine union of Isis and Osiris. Osiris, the masculine principle, carried the seed of order, structure, and kingship. Isis, the feminine counterpart, embodied the womb of magic, intuition, and life-giving power. Their union birthed Horus, the child of balance, symbolizing the new order born from polarity's embrace. Here, myth became more than a story. It became a sacred mirror, teaching that all creation requires two forces, distinct yet inseparable. Journey eastward, and the Vedic traditions of India reveal a similar truth. In Hindu philosophy, the dance of Shiva and Shakti lies at the heart of existence. Shiva represents pure consciousness, the unchanging masculine witness. Shakti is the dynamic feminine energy, the creative power that stirs, shapes, and brings forth worlds. Alone, Shiva is static, motionless, without expression. Alone, Shakti is chaotic, ungrounded, directionless. But together, their dance sustains the cosmos. The union of their energies is celebrated not only in philosophy, but in sacred ritual, reminding seekers that creation itself is divine play, Leela, born from polarity's embrace. In Taoist thought, this harmony becomes the yin and yang, a circle divided yet complete. Yin, the feminine, is cool, receptive, nurturing, soft. Yang, the masculine, is hot, active, assertive, bright. Neither is superior, and neither is whole without the other. Day flows into night, and night into day, just as breath flows into breath. In the Tao, balance is not a fixed state, but a flowing relationship between gendered forces. forever moving, forever exchanging. What is remarkable is how these traditions, though separated by vast distances and cultures, whisper the same truth. From the Nile to the Ganges, from the mountains of China to the temples of Greece, mystics saw that the universe was built on the marriage of archetypal energies. Masculine and feminine were never meant as mere human categories, but as cosmic patterns, infinite in scope. Even the philosophers of Greece hinted at this secret. Plato spoke of the original unity of the soul, later split into halves that forever seek reunion. Empedocles described the forces of love and strife as the engines of the cosmos, love binding all things together, strife pulling them apart. Though cloaked in different language, the essence remained: polarity, union, and the eternal dance of opposites. These echoes reveal something profound. The principle of gender was never confined to one place, one text, or one people. It appeared wherever humanity looked deeply into the mysteries of life. The sages of old understood what we are only beginning to remember, that creation is born not from isolation, but from union. Imagine these traditions not as separate streams, but as tributaries of the same river. Egypt's Isis and Osiris, India's Shiva and Shakti, China's yin and yang, all flowing together into one truth. Masculine and feminine are not labels, but living principles that move through every level of being. And so, the principle of gender becomes less of an abstract teaching and more of a living key. A reminder that our lives, our choices, and our very consciousness are participants in the same cosmic dance that myths have been whispering about for millennia. This is why the ancients wrapped their wisdom in story and symbol. A story, after all, speaks to the heart as well as the mind. It awakens the feminine through imagination and the masculine through structure, planting the seed of wisdom in a womb of wonder. Their myths were not primitive tales. They were sophisticated vessels, designed to carry the deepest truths across centuries. When we look at them this way, we realize that the principle of gender was never lost. It has always been here, encoded in culture, carried by language, hidden in plain sight. It waits for us to read with new eyes, to hear with new ears, to feel with new hearts. And as we listen to these ancient echoes, we are prepared to step further into the mystery, where the principle of gender reveals itself not only in myth and philosophy, but in the very workings of the cosmos itself. When we lift our gaze from the myths of the ancients and turn it outward toward the heavens, the same eternal principle unfolds before us. The cosmos itself is a vast stage upon which the masculine and feminine reveal their ceaseless embrace. Stars are born, galaxies collide, and worlds emerge, all because of this polarity of creation. The masculine is the seed, the spark, the directive force that drives outward, breaking silence with the cry of becoming. The feminine is the womb, the matrix, the receptive vessel that receives, shapes, and nurtures into form. One cannot exist in fullness without the other. For creation is not a solitary act. It is a marriage, a rhythm, a cosmic breath that exhales worlds into being. Consider the birth of stars. In great clouds of gas and dust, gravity, the feminine force of receptivity and gathering, draws matter inward, holding, containing, nurturing. Within this cosmic womb, pressure builds until, at last, a fiery masculine spark ignites. Nuclear fusion. Light bursts forth, and a star is born. It is the same pattern whispered in Hermetic law. Seed and soil, spark and womb, force and form. The galaxies themselves turn in spirals, masculine thrusts of movement curving gracefully into feminine arcs of containment. Expansion and contraction, order and chaos, silence and sound. Each reflects the duality that gives rhythm to the universe. Even black holes, the most mysterious of cosmic phenomena, play their role in this eternal dance. They are devouring wombs, feminine in their power to receive all that approaches, even light. And yet, within their depths, matter may collapse and rebirth itself into another form, reminding us that destruction is never the end, but part of the cycle of creation. Physics too speaks in the language of polarity. Matter is balanced by antimatter, positive by negative, charge by countercharge. Electrons circle, protons in a delicate embrace, the attraction between them giving rise to the very structure of atoms. Without this polarity, there would be no form, no stability, no existence. The masculine charge presses forward, the feminine receives, and together, they weave the lattice of matter. Even light itself tells this story. As particle, it is the masculine seed, a pinpoint of force and presence. As wave, it is the feminine field, expansive, flowing, diffused. Both are true, and both are needed. Light would not be light without its dual expression. In this, the cosmos confirms what the Hermetic sages declared long ago. Gender manifests on all planes. And if the heavens reveal it, so too does the earth. The ocean tides rise and fall through the union of the masculine sun and the feminine moon. The seasons shift in a rhythm of sowing and harvesting, of masculine impulse and feminine reception. Life unfolds only because these polarities do not fight. They dance, they weave, they call each other into being. But perhaps the greatest secret of the cosmic polarity is this. It is not about domination, but balance. The masculine does not conquer the feminine, nor does the feminine consume the masculine. Creation arises only when the two meet as equals, each offering what the other lacks, each completing the circle of wholeness. The ancients knew this truth, and modern science confirms it. Without duality, there can be no life, no order, no universe at all. This balance also speaks to us as individuals. For the same forces that birth galaxies also move within the chambers of the human heart. The masculine spark in us seeks to move, to express, to build. The feminine current in us seeks to receive, to nurture, to allow. When these currents fall into harmony within, we ourselves become creators, shaping lives, relationships, and futures in rhythm with the cosmos. The universe as a great symphony. The masculine notes are sharp, direct, striking with clarity. The feminine notes are soft, resonant, echoing with depth. Alone, each is incomplete. Together they create harmony, melody, song. This is the music of creation, and it is playing now, all around us, and within us. The Hermetic masters understood this song, and they urged us to listen deeply. Not with the ears of the body, but with the ear of the soul. For when we attune ourselves to the cosmic polarity, life ceases to feel random. Every force, every movement, every change is seen as part of a grand, balanced design. The expansion of joy, the contraction of sorrow, the spark of inspiration, the silence of rest, all are expressions of the eternal masculine and feminine dance. This is why they called it a principle. Not a suggestion, not a theory, but a law woven into the essence of being. We are born from it, we live within it, and we return to it, again and again, like breath returning to breath. And so, the cosmos itself becomes our teacher. The stars tell us, creation needs polarity. The atoms tell us, balance births form. The tides tell us, union sustains movement. Everywhere, the forgotten truth is written in plain sight, that gender is the secret key behind the unfolding of worlds. As we carry this awareness, the path deepens. For if gender shapes the cosmos and the earth, what of the inner landscape, the mind, the heart, the very seat of consciousness? To answer this, we must turn inward, to the hidden chambers of the psyche, where the masculine and feminine weave the very patterns of thought and imagination. If the stars above mirror the eternal dance of gender, then so too does the vast inner sky of our own consciousness. For the Hermetic law does not stop at the physical or cosmic. It reaches inward, into the hidden chambers of the human mind, revealing how thought itself is shaped by this sacred polarity. The sages spoke of two aspects within us: the masculine as the conscious mind, the feminine as the subconscious. The masculine is the seed of idea, the directive spark that chooses, defines, and gives instruction. The feminine is the womb of imagination, the deep, receptive matrix that takes the seed and nurtures it into form. Alone, the conscious mind is barren, full of concepts without life. Alone, the subconscious is a fertile field without direction, overflowing with possibility yet lacking aim. Together, they are the alchemy of creation itself. Every thought you have is a seed. When planted in the subconscious, it begins to grow roots and branches, flowering into emotion, behavior, and circumstance. This is why ancient mystics and modern psychologists alike remind us, what you impress upon the inner feminine will eventually appear in the outer world. The union of thought and feeling becomes destiny. Carl Jung called these inner forces the animus and the anima. The animus, the inner masculine, is the voice of reason, clarity, and drive. The anima, the inner feminine, is the voice of intuition, mystery, and depth. Both live within every person, regardless of outer form. To deny one is to walk with only half a soul. To unite them is to approach wholeness, a process Jung named individuation. In practical terms, this means that when reason and imagination work in harmony, the mind becomes a temple of creation. Logic defines the shape, while intuition fills it with life. Vision is born from their embrace. A poem, a scientific discovery, a work of art, each is the chi of this inner marriage. Consider how this principle plays out in daily thought. You may hold a goal, a desire, a vision. This is the masculine spark. Yet if your subconscious, the feminine field, does not receive and believe it, the seed lies dormant. Conversely, the subconscious may be rich with feeling, imagery, and yearning. But without the guiding spark of intention, it wanders like a river without a course. When the two align, when thought and feeling, reason and imagination, head and heart meet, manifestation becomes inevitable. The Hermetic texts often warned, he who would master creation must master the union of mind. They knew that the principle of gender within us was not metaphorical, but literal in its power. The conscious mind impregnates the subconscious with thought. The subconscious, once seated, brings it to birth in the fabric of experience. This is why affirmations, visualization, and meditation are so potent. They are tools of inner alchemy, shaping the dance of masculine and feminine within the psyche. Modern science offers its own reflections of this truth. Neuroscience shows us that the brain itself has two hemispheres, each carrying qualities often associated with these polarities. The left hemisphere, structured and linear, resembles the masculine current. The right hemisphere, holistic and creative, reflects the feminine. Though the division is not absolute, the metaphor is striking. Even our very biology carries the signature of polarity. The mind thrives not when one dominates, but when both hemispheres, both energies, are integrated into a seamless whole. This integration is also the secret of balance in emotional life. A purely masculine mind may grow rigid, overly analytical, cold in its calculations. A purely feminine mind may drift into fantasy, overwhelmed by tides of feeling without anchor. But when masculine clarity steadies feminine depth, and when feminine intuition softens masculine logic, a wisdom greater than either alone emerges. This is the wisdom of balance, the wisdom of wholeness. We live this principle more often than we realize. When a new idea strikes you, that is the masculine spark. When you daydream about it, letting imagination fill it with detail, that is the feminine reception. When you take action and give it form, it is because the two have united. Even in the smallest acts of creativity, cooking a meal, writing a sentence, planning a day, the dance of gender moves through you. The ancients spoke of this inner union in poetic language, calling it the sacred marriage, or hieros gamos. In their temples and myths, kings and queens, gods and goddesses came together not simply as lovers, but as symbols of the soul's wholeness. To them, the greatest act of devotion was not external ritual, but the inner alignment of mind and heart, masculine and feminine, within the seeker. Pause now, and feel these forces within yourself. The voice that calculates, measures, and directs, that is your inner masculine. The voice that feels, imagines, and dreams, that is your inner feminine. They are not in conflict, they are longing for union. Each thought you hold can be seen as a seed. Each feeling you nurture is the soil. Together, they shape the garden of your life. To ignore this is to live fragmented, chasing logic without soul, or drifting in feeling without anchor. To honor it is to reclaim the forgotten power of your own mind, to realize that you are not a passive witness to reality, but an active creator, shaping experience from the union of your inner polarities. This is the principle of gender within the human psyche. A law as true as gravity, as real as breath. It does not ask for belief. It asks for recognition. For once seen, it cannot be unseen. Once honored, it transforms the way you think, feel, and live. And as we awaken to this truth, the path invites us deeper still. For the principle of gender is not confined to myth, cosmos, or mind. It is also written into the very energy of life itself, into the subtle forces that science is only now beginning to glimpse. To walk further, we must bridge the wisdom of the mystics with the discoveries of the quantum, where the masculine and feminine reveal themselves again in the very fabric of energy. The mind reflects the dance of gender, but the mystery does not end within us. It extends outward, into the subtle fabric of energy itself. For just as myth spoke of divine pairs and consciousness reveals its masculine and feminine aspects, so too does modern science uncover polarity at the very heart of matter. What the Hermetic sages once intuited, quantum physics now whispers in equations and experiments. At the foundation of existence, energy moves in pairs, Electricity flows because of positive and negative charge. One outward, one receptive. Magnetism exists because poles call to each other, one sending, one drawing in. Without both, there is no current, no attraction, no field. This is the masculine and feminine at play in the invisible architecture of the universe. Even light, the essence of life, carries this duality. At times it appears as a particle, sharp, defined, the masculine seed of force. At other times, it spreads as a wave, expansive, enveloping, the feminine field of possibility. It is not one or the other, it is both, and it chooses its face depending on how it is observed. This paradox of wave and particle mirrors the Hermetic axiom. Gender manifests on all planes. The union of forces is not limited to physics. Life itself encodes the principle in its very blueprint. Consider DNA. Two strands intertwined in a double helix, each carrying complementary information. The masculine impulse is there in the precise sequence of nucleotides, the directive code that defines. The feminine is there in the cell's environment, the nurturing matrix that expresses, shapes, and brings the code to life. Seed and soil, again and again. Without the masculine blueprint, life cannot be defined. Without the feminine environment, the blueprint cannot awaken. Biology confirms this same truth at every scale. Cells divide, bodies grow, ecosystems thrive, all through an interplay of forces that mirror polarity. Hormones, electrical impulses, even the delicate rhythm of heartbeats all show masculine bursts and feminine receptions, active signals and receptive responses. The body itself is a living Hermetic text. Quantum theory adds yet another layer. In the quantum field, particles exist in states of potential until observed. Masculine intention collapses possibility into form, while feminine openness allows infinite outcomes to exist before that choice. The field of probability is like a womb, vast and unbounded. Observation is the spark, the seed that calls one possibility into manifestation. Consciousness itself plays the role of gender in the theater of reality. The mystics of old might not have spoken of quanta or fields, but they knew the truth in symbols. They said the universe is mind, and thought is creative. Science now finds that observation, mind, directly influences outcome. Once again, the ancient and the modern stand face to face, two mirrors reflecting the same light. This marriage of science and spirit is not accidental. It reveals that the Hermetic principles were never superstition, but perception refined into wisdom. The sages did not need microscopes or particle accelerators to see polarity. They felt it in breath, in sun and moon, in seed and soil. Science now gives language to their vision, proving in numbers what they declared in poetry. In the quantum field as an ocean, shimmering with possibility. The feminine aspect is this vastness, endless, receptive, undefined. The masculine is the pebble dropped into the water, sending ripples, creating pattern, collapsing infinite waves into a single form. Together, they create reality. Each choice you make is such a ripple, each thought a pebble cast into the womb of possibility. And so, the principle of gender is not simply ancient philosophy. It is the hidden symmetry of science. It is the rhythm of energy, the dance of light, the spiral of DNA, the charge of particles. It is the unseen architecture by which the universe moves, breathes, and becomes. To recognize this is to bridge two worlds, the mystical and the material. We begin to see that they are not enemies, but lovers, each completing the other. Mysticism gives meaning. Science gives structure. Together, they awaken us to a fuller truth. That reality itself is a marriage of masculine and feminine, force and field, spark and womb. As we stand in this recognition, another question arises. If energy itself is born from polarity, then how might we live in balance with these forces within us? How might we embody the same sacred union that gives birth to stars and cells? For the principle is not meant to remain abstract. It is meant to be lived as a daily practice, as an inner alchemy. And so the path carries us forward into the art of balance, into the sacred marriage within. The cosmos whispers its secrets not only in distant stars or quantum fields, but in the silence of our own hearts. For the principle of gender is not a truth to be studied from afar. It is a living law, inviting us to embody its rhythm. Just as the universe is born from polarity, so too are we asked to harmonize the masculine and feminine within ourselves. Within each soul, these forces reside. The masculine emerges as clarity, structure, willpower, the sharp arrow that seeks direction. The feminine reveals itself as intuition, receptivity, compassion, the open chalice that receives and nurtures. Neither is superior, neither complete without the other. Alone, they fall into imbalance. Together, they weave the sacred marriage, the alchemy of balance that births wisdom. We can sense this truth in daily life. When willpower burns too strongly without gentleness, it becomes rigid, harsh, unyielding. When receptivity flows without structure, it dissolves into confusion, passivity, or endless waiting. But when the sword of action joins the chalice of intuition, something luminous is born. Thought becomes fertile. Creation becomes graceful. Life unfolds with harmony rather than force. The mystics of every age have spoken of this inner union. Taoism calls it the dance of yin and yang. Tantra speaks of Shiva and Shakti entwined in eternal embrace. Alchemy names it the coniunctio, the sacred conjunction that transforms lead into gold, not physical gold, but the radiant gold of the awakened soul. All point to the same truth. Balance is the key, and union the gateway to higher life. This alchemy is not merely metaphorical. It is a real process of inner transformation. When we unite the masculine clarity of the mind with the feminine depth of the heart, we open channels of creativity, love, and purpose. Decisions become wiser, actions more compassionate, and even silence becomes rich with meaning. The self is no longer divided but whole, resonating with the rhythm of the cosmos itself. To live this balance requires awareness. It asks us to pause and listen. When do I lean too heavily on force, on doing, on striving? When do I collapse too far into passivity, into waiting, into yielding? In those moments, the principle calls us gently back to center. It reminds us to let the two currents flow together, to let them kiss in the middle ground where true harmony resides. Consider the breath. Inhale is masculine, active, drawing in, filling, expanding. Exhale is feminine, releasing, yielding, surrendering back to the whole. Neither can exist without the other, and only in their cycle does life flow. To breathe consciously is to practice this union, to feel the marriage of opposites in every moment of our being. The sacred union is not about erasing difference, but about revering it. The masculine does not become the feminine, nor does the feminine dissolve into the masculine. Each retains its essence, but together they create something greater, a third force, a higher octave of being. Just as light emerges from the tension of wave and particle, just as life springs from the meeting of seed and soil, so too does the awakened soul arise from inner polarity, resolved in harmony. To honor this principle is to live as a microcosm of the cosmos. Every choice becomes an act of alchemy. To speak with both clarity and compassion, to act with both courage and receptivity, to love with both strength and tenderness. In this way, daily life itself becomes the philosopher's stone, the ground of transformation. And as we walk this path, something subtle yet profound begins to happen. We no longer feel pulled apart by inner conflict. The divided self dissolves, and in its place we discover a quiet unity, a calm radiance. We become a vessel of creation, not through striving, but through balance. The masculine and feminine within us are no longer at war. They are lovers, embracing in the stillness of the soul. This is the sacred union. This is the alchemy of balance. And as we embody it, we step into the very heart of the Hermetic mystery. Yet the journey does not end here. For once this inner harmony is found, it asks to be expressed outward, in relationships, in the way we meet others, in the way we meet the world. The principle of gender, after all, is not only within us, it lives in every connection we form. And so, our path now turns to love, creation, and the union of souls. When the inner masculine and feminine find their balance, the soul begins to radiate a quiet harmony. But the principle of gender was never meant to remain confined within the self. It is the very heartbeat of relationship, the unseen law guiding love, connection, and the act of creation. To live this principle outwardly is to step into the cosmic dance that binds all beings together. Love, in its deepest sense, is not simply attraction or sentiment. It is resonance. It is the meeting of two polarities, each carrying currents that complete and amplify the other. When two beings connect, their masculine and feminine energies weave like threads, creating a tapestry greater than either could hold alone. This is why love feels like expansion, like stepping beyond oneself. It is the law of gender moving through us, showing us that union is not merely possible, but necessary for growth. Ancient traditions described this in myth and symbol. In Hindu lore, the god Shiva is the stillness, the witnessing consciousness, while Shakti is the vibrant energy, the dance of manifestation. Alone, each is incomplete. Together, they create the cosmos. The Greeks spoke of eros, not merely as desire, but as the binding force that unites heaven and earth. Even in Hermetic texts, the creative impulse of the universe is described as the marriage of opposites, mind as father, nature as mother, their union birthing the worlds. Modern science, too, echoes this mystery. On the most fundamental level, creation is relational. Electrons circle nuclei not in isolation, but in dynamic bonds. Molecules form because atoms share, exchange, and intertwine. Life emerges not from solitary forces, but from interaction, cooperation, and the blending of complementary patterns. Whether in cells, stars, or souls, creation always begins with relationship. And so it is with us. Each partnership, whether romantic, and in this larger sense, love becomes cosmic. It is no longer limited to two, but expands to include the many, the human family, the living planet, the universe itself. To embody the principle of gender in love is to realize that every interaction is sacred, every bond is creative, every connection is an echo of the divine union. As we begin to live this way, something extraordinary happens. We see relationships not as chains, but as wings. Love ceases to be a search for completion and becomes a celebration of wholeness meeting wholeness. Creativity stops being an act of struggle and becomes a natural flowering of balance. We realize that we are not simply participants in love and creation. We are the dance itself, and so the journey deepens. For if gender manifests in the cosmos, in the mind, in energy, and in love, then its final mystery must be found in the highest realm, spirit. There, the masculine and feminine dissolve into a unity beyond polarity, a silence from which all duality is born. The principle leads us, step by step, toward that ultimate truth. Every principle, no matter how vast, ultimately points toward a greater whole. And so it is with the principle of gender. We have seen it in the cosmos, in energy, in the mind, and in love. Yet beyond all these layers lies a truth even deeper, the realm of spirit, where polarity dissolves and unity reigns. The Hermetic sages often spoke of the One, the unmanifest source, the boundless mind from which all existence flows. Within that One, there is no division, no masculine or feminine, no seed or soil. There is only pure being, pure potential, pure light. Gender, like all principles, operates in the manifest world. But spirit is unmanifest. It is the silence before the first word, the stillness before vibration begins. And yet, this silence contains everything. From its unfathomable depths emerge the twin currents of masculine and feminine, just as light splits into colors through a prism. Spirit is not one half of the duality. It is the ground upon which duality arises. Masculine and feminine are not separate from it. They are expressions of its wholeness. To glimpse this truth is to recognize that all polarities, no matter how real they seem, are ultimately two sides of the same coin. Day and night, expansion and contraction, inhale and exhale, all are movements upon the surface of a deeper unity. Gender is the law of creation, but spirit is the source from which creation flows. Mystics of every path have pointed toward this ultimate transcendence. The Taoists spoke of the Tao, which cannot be named, yet gives birth to yin and yang. The Vedantic sages declared, "Thou art that, the self beyond duality." In Christian mysticism, God is said to be neither male nor female, but spirit, containing both yet bound by neither. All traditions converge on the same horizon, the realization that beyond polarity lies oneness. This is not to deny the dance of gender, but to place it in perspective. For as long as we live in the realm of form, polarity will guide us. It shapes our thoughts, our relationships, our creations. But when the soul turns inward, beyond form, it discovers that the dancer and the dance are one. Masculine and feminine dissolve like waves returning to the sea. What remains is pure awareness, unbroken and eternal. To experience this unity is to taste liberation. The conflicts of polarity no longer bind us. We no longer cling to one side of the duality, nor fear its opposite. We rest in the center, in the silence that holds both. From this place, love deepens, creativity expands, and wisdom blossoms. Not because we strive, but because we align with the truth that we are already whole. It is here that the principle of gender reveals its final gift. It teaches us through polarity, but it leads us into unity. It shows us the power of balance, but then dissolves even the need for balance. For in spirit, all opposites are reconciled. The masculine and feminine are not lost, but transcended, enfolded into a higher harmony that words cannot fully capture. And so the journey comes full circle. We began with the mystery of gender as a law misunderstood, often reduced to biology or myth. We traveled through its manifestations in mind, energy, and love. And now, at the summit, we find that the principle points us back to the timeless truth, that we are not divided beings struggling between polarities. We are spirit, eternal and indivisible, expressing itself through the dance of duality. To rest in this realization is to live with a quiet joy, a steady peace. The universe may still unfold in rhythms of masculine and feminine, yet the soul rests in the unity beneath. And from that unity, we engage the world not as seekers of completion, but as expressions of wholeness, pouring light into every act, every word, every embrace. This is the highest teaching of the principle of gender, that polarity is sacred, but unity is eternal. To know both is to live as a bridge between heaven and earth, as a child of the cosmos, and as a spark of the infinite one. The journey of the principle of gender has carried us through many realms, cosmos and mind, science and spirit, love and unity. And now, as we arrive at the closing of this exploration, the question remains, how do we live this truth? How do we carry this ancient wisdom into the quiet moments of our daily lives? The answer is both simple and profound. To walk the path of balance is to remember again and again that both currents move within us. When the masculine stirs, offering clarity and action, we allow it to guide with strength but not with harshness. When the feminine rises, offering intuition and surrender, we welcome it with reverence, but not with passivity. The art is not in choosing one over the other, but in allowing both to flow together like two rivers meeting in the heart. This balance is not static. It is not a state we reach once and for all. It is a living practice, a rhythm we learn to dance with. Some days will lean toward will, others toward rest. Some moments will demand firmness, others tenderness. To walk this path is to listen deeply, to feel the pulse of the moment, and to respond with harmony rather than division. In this way, the principle of gender becomes more than philosophy. It becomes a mirror for how we speak, love, create, and simply be. Every breath reminds us. Inhale with strength. Exhale with surrender. Every heartbeat whispers. Give and receive. Act and rest. Life itself is a teacher, showing us the marriage of opposites in every moment. And as we live this way, we begin to notice a subtle transformation. Conflicts soften. Creativity flows more naturally. Relationships deepen, not because we try to control them, but because we approach them as alchemists, honoring the balance of seed and soil, spark and vessel. Even challenges take on a new meaning, for they too are invitations to discover balance within polarity. Walking the path of balance does not mean escaping the world. It means engaging it more fully. It means speaking truth with kindness, acting with courage and compassion, and meeting life not as fragments, but as wholeness in motion. It means becoming, in a quiet way, a living symbol of the principle itself. And so, as this reflection closes, let us remember the hidden teaching. Gender exists on all planes, but unity holds them all. The cosmos was born through polarity, yet rests in oneness. The mind creates through thought and feeling, yet is sustained by silence. Love blossoms through difference, yet points to wholeness. And spirit, beyond all, is the eternal ground from which every dance arises. To carry this principle is to live with reverence, to breathe with awareness, to act with balance, to love with wholeness, and in doing so, to become a bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the masculine and the feminine, between the finite and the infinite. This is the real meaning of the principle of gender, not merely a law of creation, but a call to harmony, not merely an ancient teaching, but a living path, a reminder that we are already complete, and that in our balance, we become creators, healers, and reflections of the divine itself. And so, as you return to your own life, may you carry this truth gently. May you honor both seed and soil, both force and flow, and may you discover in every moment that you are the dance, you are the balance, and you are the union the cosmos has been singing since the beginning of time.